Hello, and welcome to something entirely new. This is not your usual podcast episode, as instead, I'm going to be talking about and covering the new rules updates. I am alone in this endeavor. Do not expect this to go for the usual hour and a half, 2 hours. This will probably last about 30 minutes at most, and then afterwards, I will be addressing any questions, comments, or concerns as they appear. We're going to jump straight into the first one, which is the changes to the Recon class. These changes came about due to uh, player feedback, which is where most of our rule changes come from, that the Recon class felt underwhelming. If you don't know, sniping in Airsoft is underwhelming to begin with, and then due to GCW having resiliency and self revives, single action sniper rifles aren't that great. So the class kind of just became the drone class, which also isn't great when you compare it to the capabilities of the other classes. So we wanted to really expand on what the class is outside of just the drone class or the sniper class. And so we're really leaning it into that stealth reconnaissance feeling. Um, so to do that, we have implemented two big changes. The first that I'm going to cover is an entirely new rule, and that is stealth eliminations. This is uncharted territory for GCW, as typically we are a bit adverse to melee and player contact for what I would hope is obvious reasons, but mainly insurance and things of that issue. So to start, I'm just going to read the rule verbatim, and then I'll get into some deeper explanation as needed. Stealth elimination. Recon players may eliminate unaware enemies using a stealth elimination. To do this, the Recon player must place a hand on an opponent who is completely unaware. Key thing, completely unaware of their presence. They must quietly say stealth elimination loud enough for the target to hear and count to 10 out loud while maintaining that physical contact the entire time. If the count is completed without interruption, the target is eliminated from play with no bleed out. They do not call hit, they silently put on their eliminated sash, their dead sash, and they return to spawn without speaking or signaling in any way what has happened. If the elimination is interrupted by an external source after contact is made, the target instead enters bleed out and may call for a medic or use self revives. If the Recon player voluntarily releases contact before completing the count, the attempt fails and the target remains active. The Recon player may loot any visible gear from the eliminated target unless it is protected loot because they are an operative. Stealth eliminations have no effect on Juggernaut characters who are immune to this ability. Alright, that was a big word soup. So let me... volumes low. I have mine maxed all the way out. Not sure how to fix it. I can try talking louder for you. How about I talk louder? Yeah, so that was a big word soup. The key aspect, though, is that completely unaware aspect. So I can't walk up to you pretending to be friendly, say, hi, how you doing? Oh, just looking for work. And then when you turn around or I walk past you, I then reach back and stay stealth elimination. That's not going to fly. If you're ever unsure, ask yourself, if I were to suddenly jump for this person's neck, would they in any way be able to fight back or expect it? Because you got to think, we are typically in a war zone, so most people are going to be on edge and they're going to be kind of checking over their shoulder, and that sixth sense is going to be firing active. So you need to have the complete drop on someone. You cannot jump around a corner, so you can't hide behind a doorway and someone now they can pass through, and if they don't see you, you can stealth eliminate them. But I can't like Five Nights at Freddy's jump out at someone. That's not going to cut it. Now again, if I'm stealth eliminating someone and I get shot, I'm the Recon player, I'm shot, I'm downed, the person I was eliminating now goes into bleed out and can start calling for a medic. So if the Recon player, the person, the attacker will say, gets hit, it's like you're not really dead. Like I got my vibro blade into you, but I couldn't finish the job, so you're not dead. You can call for medic. If I am the attacker and I put my hand on you, and then for whatever reason I get scared and I let go and I scurry off, you're still alive. You can turn back around and shoot me in the butt. Um, so those are the very important things to remember. Now, if I put my hand on you and you like pull away, you can't do that. You can't start moving or pull away. The second that stealth elimination is said and contact is made, you're effectively dead. Stay still. Think that about cover stealth eliminations. Now, this is... I'm very interested to see how this plays out. I want to call it a beta rule, but we're just jumping into making it happen. Is Betty safe from this? Man, that's a good question. That's something we had considered. I might need to talk to Chris and the other admins and see how they feel about droids being stealth eliminated. So we'll see about that. But yeah, I think this will be a good change for the recon class. Kind of give them more utility while also increasing the amount of lethality in the game. That's a big thing that we've been running into lately. Is there's a lot of staying power, but there's not a lot of lethality. So things like attrition don't really factor into combat as much as we would like. So I'm sure some of our sneakier solo players are going to get a lot of mileage out of this one. I am dying to hear whoever gets to pull it off first. I'm hoping somebody does. A FNAF style kill cam. Yeah. See, this could really... I can't say too much, but... so that's kind of stealth eliminations. You can see I have this nice little graph on screen. Wait for the sentry to check his Facebook page on his phone. Step 2, audibly say stealth kill and place your hand on his shoulder, then count to 10. So remember this image if you're ever confused on how to work it. So, seems to be an issue with the Discord part of the stream. The Discord part. I should not be in Discord. This should be just on YouTube. I am not currently streaming on Discord. Maybe I should be. Maybe it's what the people want. Do the people want me in Discord? But this was not a podcast. This was just a short thing I'm putting out instead, so I wasn't intending to be in Discord. Alright. Yeah, I don't think there'll be too many options for this to get pulled off. That's why I think that's part of the reason we are more willing to let ourselves test this rule, is because one, there's not a lot of recon players, and two, there's not a lot of chances for this to happen. So I want it to be an option for those players that can pull it off, but I'm also not too worried about like 100 different people trying to stealth kill each other and making a mess of it. So, but again, we'll see how it plays out. This is like not a beta rule, but kind of a beta rule. I'm excited, really excited to see it play out. So next, we'll go on to our next rule, which is still part of recon changes, and that is we are now limiting all night vision and thermal devices to the recon class. That is digital, that is analog, I forgot the other term, digital and whatever, but anything that's night vision or thermal visioning, anything that you see at night is limited to recon. This includes goggles, tubes, optics, and electric binoculars. So whether it would go on your head, on your gun, or what have you, it is now recon only. Again, this is a buff to the recon class and making it so that it now excels at doing reconnaissance. Recon players are more valuable now because if, the game has night play, you might want to start go looking for some recon players. If you are a player that has night visions and thermals and you're thinking, this is unfair, I have my night vision, but I still want to run, I don't want to be a sniper. Well, good news, you don't have to be. You can still play the recon class while using a blaster rifle. You just don't get the perks of playing assault or heavy. And of course, unless you're a hero, you can't carry an LMG. So this is, again, kind of a tweak to the balance of combat. 'Cause I think something we've seen at previous events was if you were a heavy with NVGs or thermals, you won the night. It was all you. So we kind of want to twist that up a little bit, put more weight on that recon class's utility, while just also tweaking combat a little bit. So there's less Because while these things do exist in Star Wars, they're not too terribly common. So that's kind of the intention there. Not a lot to this, just a simple gear change. And I'm hoping we'll see more recon players. It is a very underappreciated class, in my opinion, especially after all this. So that kind of covers the recon changes. It was just those two things. So if you ask me, the recon class now has some of the most abilities, while also having some of the coolest abilities. You have access to snipers and DMRs. You can use recon drones. Now you can stop eliminate, and now you're the only class that can use NVGs or thermals. So I think that class identity is really going to pull through and make something great. So now we'll move on to our broader rule changes. The first of which, oh, we got a question in the YouTube chat cover. With these changes, will people be allowed to change classes before the next game or day of the next game attended? How would that work? So yeah, you can always change classes between events. I believe there is a credit fee. However, I think when we put this rule out, Chris made a statement in the announcements that like he would offer a free class change to anyone that was affected by this. So if you're an assault, recon, medic, or whatever, and you've been really using those NVGs or thermals imaging technologies, reach out to an admin and just say, hey, I want to change my class to recon. I want to be able to use my NVGs, and we can get that worked out for you. During events, you cannot change your class. So, come game starts Saturday morning, you are locked into whatever you are until game ends Sunday evening. But we're going to go ahead and move on to our broader rule changes. The first of which being changes to how resilience works. All right, this is a big one. So following more feedback from Echoes and previous events, because that's where all of our rule changes come from, player feedback, we're looking at changing how resilience works. Characters in Beskar armor, aliens, and droids now take anywhere from 2 to 7 consecutive BB strikes before entering bleed out based on their resilience level. All right, so 2 to 7. That's a broad gap. And based on your resilience level, what is my resilience level? How do I get that? Anyone that wants to be wearing Beskar, an alien, or a droid has to submit a photo of their kit to gcwcostumes@gmail.com, and an admin will assign the resilient level to you. This level is determined based off of the amount of armor you're wearing. If you're a Beskar wearing individual like a Mando, if you're an alien, it goes into the species of alien you're portraying and how difficult it is to wear everything you're wearing. So a Twi'lek might only get like alien or a I'm trying to remember one of the other, like if you're a very humanoid alien, you're probably only getting resiliency 2. However, if you're a Trandoshan, if you're a Wookiee, if you're what are some of the really tough aliens? Either way, you get the point. If you're one of those much tougher to portray aliens, if you're less humanoid and what you're wearing just kind of sucks a lot more to wear, you're probably going to get resiliency 4, resiliency 5, depending. There is a chart that the head honcho himself has for the armor, but I think for alien, it's going to be based off of those key things I mentioned. It'll be kind of case by case based, and we want to work with you. The more alien and the higher quality the build, the better the result for both of these things. The intent is to reward people that put in more effort as opposed to just, you spent 100 hours and $1,000 on your Mando armor. Okay, well, you get the same resilience 3 as someone that, didn't put in that same time and money. Droids, same thing. Betty is like resilient 1,000, so don't bother. But typically your droids are going to be the same deal. How difficult is it to wear? How much are you wearing? How far from humanoid are you? Those same things going into determining your resiliency level. Now, if you're a player and you're thinking to yourself, dude, how am I going to know if it's 2, if it's 5, if it's 7? That's such a wide gap. My answer to you is just keep shooting. Generally, I give everyone 3 BBs anyway. It shouldn't be an issue at all. You know, if you see someone and you're like, holy crap, that's a Wookiee, and he's decked out in like gear and kit, I would probably go ahead and send 7 his way. You know, if I see a Mando scout who's wearing a little less, I might just give him 3 or 4. Um, this is not permission to just go full auto mag dumping into people. Overshooting is still a no no, and if we know that you're intentionally doing it, that will be consequences of its own. But, you know, hopefully this change will encourage players to put that extra mile into their aliens, their Mandos, and their droids, while also still leaving that option there for people that want to wear that lighter kit. All right, so that's resilience. And in the same vein of that, the Empire, as we all know, sorry, that was the wrong picture. Yeah, there's a good alien. If you see that alien right there, I would probably go ahead and assume he had 5 to 7. That being Mr. Two Tubes himself. But anyway, the Empire, as we all know, has access to a lot more resources, a lot more manufacturing capabilities, and better supply lines, and therefore their troops are usually better equipped with better equipment. So, in the same vein as resilience, Imperials now have the Imperial Plastoid rule, which is any Imperial wearing Plastoid, full Plastoid. So it has to be something like a Scout Trooper, a Stormtrooper, a Shore Trooper, or a Mud Trooper with the fully enclosed helmet. So you have to have the visor and the goggles. If you have that full kit, you now get resilience. I believe it is Mud Troopers get resiliency 2, um, whereas Scouts, Storm, and Shore get resiliency 3. So not only do they get their usual Plastoid self revive, but they now get an extra BB strike on top of that. So your average Scout Trooper wearing, you know, his helmet, his chest, his shoulders, his forearms, his all that kit and caboodle, not only does he have a minute and 30-second self revive, but he now has an extra resiliency to help him block stray BBs and lucky hits. So that's a little buff to the Empire to kind of make them feel stronger and make them a tougher opponent, as they should be. You know, we always want to do our best to reflect that kind of asymmetric combat that is the Galactic Civil War. And so therefore we want to help the Empire feel like they have the weight of an empire behind them. So they're harder to put down and they're a lot harder to keep down. So that's Imperial Plastoid. If you're not sure if your kit counts, just, you know, post a picture, ask an admin. But it is Mud Troopers, Shore Troopers, Storm Troopers, and Scout Troopers. Full kit, full seal helmet, not full seal helmet, you know what I mean. Full helmet gets you the resilience. Oh, and you would get headshot immunity on top of that. So our 2 Scout Troopers here in this photo have headshot immunity because of their full seal helmets. They have self-revive of, I think, a minute and 30 seconds. I can't tell from the photo how much they're really wearing. And now they would have Imperial Plastoids. They would have resilience. So, something to think about. If you really hate dying and being dead, maybe the Empire is calling for you. Something to consider. Next on the list is hero missions. There's a very heroic looking individual right there. This is something that we are going to slowly start integrating into the game. Now, when we first announced this, immediate feedback was very mixed, but I want to clarify a few key things. These missions are not mandatory. How they will work is, let's say, next LARP event, we take a look. Okay, what players are attending? Which of them have the hero upgrade? Okay, Husky has the hero upgrade. Before the event starts, an admin would come to Husky and say, hey, do you want to opt in to being offered a hero mission? Husky, if he doesn't want to risk it, can say no. And there's no consequence. There's no negative. You lost audio. What in the world? I'm still hearing myself on the feedback. Are we sure? Can I get someone else in the chat to tell me if we look? Okay. Jason, I'm not sure. Maybe refresh your feed. I know YouTube has a lot of problems with lives. All right, John Pierce and Piggly Wiggly are all still standing still. So we're going to continue on. Um, yeah, hero missions, not mandatory. They are an optional thing you can be offered. And if you decline them, there is no consequence to you or your team. But let's say Husky's feeling bold and he says, I opt in. Okay, cool. Then at any point during the event, admins can come to Husky or really to the Rebel faction and say, hey, we have this immediate mandatory tasking. This is a high risk, high value target. We need this major important thing done, and we need a hero to lead the charge. Think of the Endor battle when you had Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewie leading those rebel commandos. It's this we're going for the same feeling. So then we go to the hero and we say, we have a mission for you, Husky. There is a uh, Imperial black box we need to recover that has secret data, and it's deep within enemy lines. The Imperial, the Imperials would be kind of told, hey, you should probably go protect this majorly important thing. And then it is up to the hero to assemble a team and say, hey, who wants to help me out? Let me gather some guys. The Rebel Command can use some skirmish points, because the way it's going to work going forward is skirmish boxes, when you control them at LARP events, earn your team points that the commanders can spend on like little buffs and boost. So Rebel Command says, hey, we have X amount of points. We're going to spend this many to get you an extra upgrade or some sort of force multiplier, some sort of bonus. So now Husky has assembled a group of 5 rebels that he trusts. He's been given a bonus, and he has his mission. One of the bonuses is that for every hero mission, there will always be an admin present, not necessarily escorting, but following along just to ensure things go smoothly and there's no like BS that kind of screws the hero over and ruins the mission for them. One of the upgrades is that admin can be in game. So, the Rebel Command pays the points, and Cal, who's a Rebel admin, not only joins me in game, but he's like escorting the mission, but now he's actually fighting alongside me. However, at any point during this mission, if I were to die, there are consequences to that. One of those consequences is risking permanent character death. So if Husky were to completely fail, he gets killed, he gets eliminated, he bleeds out, the mission's a failure. The Empire comes out in force and just wipes us out. Husky has lost his character. That seems like a major thing. And it is, because these missions are high risk, high reward. If the mission is to succeed, then there will be a huge boon granted to the rebels. So Husky and his strike team goes on their mission. They fight hard. They succeed. They recover the black box. They come back. All right, great. Here is a major credit payout. Here's it wouldn't be that. It would be a buff for the whole team. The entire rebel team would get some sort of buff. I don't want to get too specific. I'm just wanting to kind of explain how these missions would work. Now, if it fails, not only does Husky lose his character, if it fails or if Husky refuses the mission, then the Imperial team would get a buff. Hey, the rebels didn't recover this black box and it had valuable intel that we can use against them on it. So these missions are meant to be these big event defining, kind of storyline changing missions. Now, again, they are totally opt-in and opt-outable. If you don't like the idea, you don't have to partake in it. And of course, we will be designing missions for players of every faction and of every class. So if you're a unaffiliated recon player, we're not going to tell you to go lead a one-man charge against, an Imperial stronghold. However, if you're an Imperial heavy, expect to do some fighting. No. So, good question. Gabby Todd asked, if a hero invites someone to go on this hero mission, do they suffer the same risk rewards? No. The the like let's say my good pal Jay Wolf accompanies Husky on his mission. If Jay Wolf gets hit and dies, he doesn't suffer permadeath. He's just, here helping out. If we succeed, then the entire rebellion gets the bonus and these reward, which would include him. So it encourages rebels to, or I should say, it encourages any hero to go and find some friends and find a team to help them out. And because there's no real risk for the non-heroes, it encourages them to say, yeah, you know what, okay, I'll join along. Now, if you're unaffiliated, it might be harder to find some friends, but don't worry, hero missions will be tailored to the specific hero. We're not going to make generic missions and send you on them. Um, we are going to look at you, what faction you are, what kind of player you are, what kind of character you are, and the mission will be made for you specifically. All right, so that was a mouthful. That is hero missions. I expect we will playtest probably the first one at Planetary Garrison Rhaegor. So you may want to be in attendance for that. If you're a hero, maybe say, hey, I opt in, and we'll get to make it something cool just for you. A tasty drink of water. Stay hydrated. All right, that is hero missions. Up next, we're going to talk about the new way Battlefront rounds are working. In the past, Battlefront events were just kind of round-based conquest-style games where there were skirmish points on the field, and we were just basically vying for territory, capture the most points, whoever wins. If you remember, at Planetary Garrison Rhaegor, a couple rounds we did something a little different. We teased different stuff. Well, going forward, Battlefront Mouse, and we will be doing an entirely new system for Battlefronts. No more repetitive rounds and just conquest. Instead, each round will be its own special game mode, the results of which kind of act in a flowchart, and that determines what the next round will be. So if the first round will likely be your standard conquest game mode. If the Empire wins, then the next game mode is the Empire has taken control of the town and they're kind of going on an offensive, or they're now defending territory. It's to make the Battlefront games a little less repetitive and make them a whole lot more interesting, so you kind of don't want to sit out a round if every round's going to be special and unique. So, if for more details, I would say check out the Galactic Civil War podcast covering Battlefront Mouseton, where I get to talk to Chris and the man behind Skirmish himself. Definitely need to push the payload. I'm not gonna lie, we might have just copied someone else's homework. No, I'm kidding. I I would love it if we do something similar, like a two-way push the payload. It might not be push the payload. It will probably be escort the Gonk droid. Which reminds me, each round also has side missions. Outside of your typical, force on force battle, there will also be side missions for the winning team to complete. So this is to prevent a snowball effect where one team is just dominating. Because, okay, not only, so let's say the Empire has won the past two rounds, not only do they now need to go on this huge offensive to knock their walls off the map, but they also have to go capture this Gonk droid. And failing to capture it gives the defending team a huge buff for the following round. So just something to be thinking about and to be concerned about. And also, it reminds me, each round will have different spawning. It'll be the same spawn point, but some rounds will allow pre-deployment. So let's say a particular game mode sees the Empire defending 3 generators on the map. The Empire is allowed to pre-deploy up to 10 squads of players, and that can, the specific number would be like between 10 to 18 players. So that they would start on the map already. So it just makes things more dynamic, more interesting, and less running back and forth between the bases. But the bases will be static, so if you want, you can take your stuff from the safe area and put it in your spawn point, in your faction base, and you don't have to worry about changing bases and all that nonsense. But again, for more information, check out the Galactic Civil War podcast, where I think it's episode 5, where we talk at Battlefront Mouston in length. Me too, Jason. Me too. I'm old and I get tired and I get hot, and I'm like, I'm just gonna sit out and maybe ref this round. But hopefully, October in Wisconsin will be a little cooler, and I'll be able to stay in the game a bit longer. All right. Um, I don't have a picture for it, so we're just gonna stay looking at the Galactic Civil War Battlefront Mauston promo. But the event immediately following will be Planetary Garrison Rhaegor. If you don't know, the Planetary Garrison events are smaller satellite events, typically hosted by a local admin. And while they are smaller events, they are no less as fun and no less as amazing as your same as the standard events. Now, Planetary Garrison, we're going to be rolling out something called canon events. For any of my old school OGs for GCW, you might remember that once upon a time, there were supposed to be scheduled battles, which sounds crazy to think about now. But for PGR, we'll be trying out canon events, where during your initial faction briefing, you will be told, come back to the base at 10:30 for your briefing for a mission that starts at 11. Both Rebels and Empire will be told that. There will actually be a schedule made in advance for you to see. This kind of sounds gamey and intrusive at first, but we think it's going to lead to a experience where more players are getting involved in some of these bigger battles. So what it's going to be is almost similar to the Battlefront rounds. We're like, hey, this first mission, come back at 10:30 for the briefing, and it'll be a specific game mode, specific mission that he's done that both the Rebels and Empire are fighting for. Unaffiliated players, you may want to be a little money minded, and I would not just walk up to a faction space during briefing and say need some help, but maybe network with some of the faction players and say, hey, if you got any big jobs coming up, keep me in mind. I'll be willing to help out. This will also ensure faction players are getting paid fairly, as you will receive half of your pay for attending that initial briefing, and then the second half of your pay will be received upon the successful completion of that mission. And these canon events are going to work the same way as the Battlefront Mauston flowchart system, and that the result of one mission determines what the next mission is going to be. So that way the players are having a tangible impact on the story. How things play out is entirely up to them and how they perform. Yeah, and this also gives you the opportunity to take a lunch break during these continuous events without feeling like you're missing out. Because if, we just finished the first canon event mission and the second briefing is not until 1:30, okay, I can go sit out and take a 30-minute lunch and not feel bad. So just something we're trying. Now this is again, we're trying out Planetary Garrison Rhaegor. This is a smaller one-day event. I'm hoping if it works really well, we may consider including it into the main LARP events, but I cannot confirm or deny that right now. That is that, and we're going to get into the last thing, our big announcement, our new rule that I said I would be announcing tonight. One piece of feedback we have gotten for a while now and not really known how to handle is that a particular upgrade has felt lackluster. For the high cost of this upgrade, it doesn't really feel like you're getting too much out of it. So I am very excited to say that after nearly 2 months of brainstorming and discussing and arguing and pulling our hair out, we have decided to introduce prestige perks for the heroes. So when you purchase a hero upgrade, not only do you pick a second class, but your main class gets a special perk added onto it. You only get the perk of your current main class when you are purchasing the upgrade. So if I'm an assaulter and I purchase the hero upgrade, my assault class gets upgraded to commando. If I'm a medic, I become a field doctor. If I'm a recon, I become an infiltrator. If I am a heavy, I become an enforcer. And if I'm an operative or a scoundrel, I become an agent. So what these perks are, we'll just go through the list real quick. Commando, instantly tap out downed players. Pretty short, pretty basic. It might sound underwhelming at first, but as someone who has been a player at every single GCW event so far, and has been an assault class player at every single event so far, and has been a very combat focused player at every single event so far, this is something I wish I could have had from the get go. So have some faith that this will be a strong perk, because one of the key design goals was to increase lethality. There are already so many different ways to improve survivability, to improve staying power, to self-revive, that we didn't want to just give any class those abilities. We didn't want to create any more redundancy. We wanted there to be these to be unique perks that um, doubled down on what that class was already good at without making it too, without like branching into a different class's territory. We didn't want generalization. We didn't want anything like that. So that would be Commando. Now, medic becoming field doctor is that they can perform medical treatment on fully eliminated players for 2 minutes to revive them. Something left out of this was that the field doctor is issued a medical, like a doctor's bag prop. What we're thinking is it'll be kind of like a blood bag almost, and it'll have a specific amount of uses. Um, and then when a player is fully eliminated, you can set up shop and say, hey, 2 minutes per person, and I bring you fully back to life. So, something to consider. But yeah, that is a resource. I'm trying to see if I have how many I've written down how many it was supposed to be, because it is not unlimited. More of this resource can be restocked at your faction base or bought at the Back to Clinic. I'm having trouble finding it right now, so just expect more details to come, because all of a sudden I can't find it worth a dang. Yep. But yep, so Medic becomes Field Doctor. The ability to revive someone from a fully eliminated state has you basically acting as a mobile respawn box, just limited use. And again, it is 2 minutes per player. So if 3 fully eliminated players come to you, you have to do them one at a time, spending 2 minutes each on each player. So it keeps it from being too overpowered. You are not literally um, a walking respawn box, but you still provide a huge amount of utility to your team. And if you're an unaffiliated doctor roaming the streets, I'm sure other players would happily pay you for this service. All right, Recon becomes Infiltrator. They and 2 fellow Recon teammates may pre-deploy before game or round start. This pre-deployment does not count towards preset mission deployment limitations. So you remember earlier I said that some of the Battlefront Milestone missions will include a limit to how many players a faction can pre-deploy on the field. Well, Recon players can pre-deploy for free without pulling any of that limit or using that limit. As well, the Infiltrator gains 3 single-use tactical reinsert glow sticks that they may use to respawn wherever they wish, so long as they are out of sight and not within 100 feet of enemy players or objectives. This ability may not be used to gain access to areas not easily accessible to the Infiltrator when they were alive. So if I'm a Rebel Infiltrator, I get downed. Let me rephrase that. If I'm a Rebel Infiltrator, I sneak into the Imperial base, or I fight my way into it, and I put a reinsert stick in there, and then I get downed. I can't reinsert on that stick in the Imperial base because it would not have been easily accessible for me otherwise. As well, if there's an objective up the hill, I can't like toss it or anything like that. It has to be placed at your feet, and then you can go back to it and respawn at it. If you put one down well in advance, like let's say Saturday morning, you drop a respawn beacon at the top of a hill, and then come Sunday evening, you're fighting for control of that hill, and like another team has control of it. You can't use that respawn beacon because you wouldn't have been, that area wouldn't have been easily accessible to you to begin with. Now, more of the single-use reinsert glow sticks can be purchased from your faction base or from an upgrade station if you're unaffiliated. So that's, again, really leaning into that infiltrator playstyle. Heavy becomes Enforcer. I will warn you in advance. Heavy was the hardest one for us to design for because, again, one of our key design philosophies was not just increasing survivability and staying power. There's already so many ways to get that ability, to get that. So we didn't want to do that. So instead, we are going with the Enforcer. The Enforcer is given 3 blue EG-25 smoke grenades. At any time, the Enforcer may activate one of the smokes and drop it at their feet. While the smoke is active, they are immune to all BB strikes and grenades. They must stay within 5 feet of the smoke and cannot use it indoors. As soon as the EG-25 smoke grenade stops bellowing smoke, the ability ends and the Enforcer is immediately eliminated if they took damage equal to their normal damage value. All right. Whew, let me drink some water after that one. So, if you're a Star Wars fan, odds are you can recall a scene in which a heavy character using a big gun has had kind of that last stand where they just seemingly become invincible. They're taking hits, and their shoulders are shrugging, but they're not going down. You know, they're walking out into the fire, and they're just laying down the hate. And that's what this is meant to replicate. The blue smoke is an obvious immediate signal to anyone that a heavy is using this ability. And the smoke also signals when the ability ends. The heavy player must stay within 5 feet of the smoke, so I can't drop it and then run far away. That's because we don't want someone dropping it and then moving so far away that someone shooting them doesn't see the smoke and doesn't understand why they're not going down. Because we want you to be able to obviously tell, okay, I'm shooting this guy, but that blue smoke, he's clearly a heavy. That's probably why he's not going down. Now, this does also mean that going forward, smoke grenade colors will be restricted. Your average player cannot just carry blue smokes. But that's a very small price to pay for a very cool ability. More blue smokes can be purchased for credits. All of this is purchased through credits. Nothing cash. It is purchased from... Yeah, we're trying to kind of implement that personal bubble shield. Doing the best we can with the limitations of, those. The EG-25s are the very small, thin ones. So I think for those, it's like less than 40 seconds. It's closer to like 20 to 30. But yeah, so that's the heavy. Operative Scoundrel becomes Agent, where they get a second chain code / skirmish chip. So this is how the Operative class actually used to work before we got the data spikes. So this second chain code / skirmish chip can be... You as the agent have the choice of which faction to register it as. And that might sound a little strange at first. Why would I want to register as anything other than my faction so I can capture things 2 times faster? Well, the answer is subterfuge and false flag operations. If I'm an Imperial agent, I can take my second skirmish chip and have it flagged as a Hutt skirmish chip. So if I think the rebels have been putting on a little too much heat onto us Imperials, I might sneak away and try and back cap some of those rebel points, but I'm tapping them as a Hutt. So now the rebels are going to see that and go, what the heck? The Hutts are attacking us and taking over our points. So the idea is that subterfuge, that false flag operations, that agent kind of working behind the scenes to manipulate the flow of battle. Or alternatively, they can just register it as their current faction, and then they can, capture points faster. A third option, which really only helps rebels, is that they can have it be scanned as unaffiliated. So if they were to go through an Imperial checkpoint, it would show that they were unaffiliated, not rebel. And I guess if the day ever comes in which the rebels have a checkpoint, then perhaps, the opposite could be true. But so far, those are the new prestige perks when you are a hero. These abilities we're hoping are powerful enough to really make the upgrade not only better, but also unique, because these are not abilities you can get anywhere else. These are exclusive only to the hero upgrade. Oh, man. Man, doing this solo sucks. My mouth is getting so dry from all the talking. Jeez. We've been going for almost 50 minutes. Good lord. All right. Um, I'm sure there are plenty of concerns with these things, but know that there's typically few heroes on the field at any time. So, more than likely during the brief, we're going to ask, hey, what heroes do we have here? They'll raise their hands and you can get a good look and be like, okay, he's a hero, he's a hero. So you can you kind of come to learn who to expect to have these abilities. You don't have to worry about like everyone having them, because I don't think anyone's ever we're never going to have everyone being a hero. But these prestige perks, as you can see, would also apply during those hero missions to give you some more staying power and some more unique abilities. So those two things kind of go hand in hand. So that is the prestige perks. If there are any questions, comments, or concerns, that's about everything that we have to cover. So thank you everyone for joining me. I'm going to be hanging out for the next 10 minutes or so. I'm going to leave this photo up on screen. And if you have anything you want to ask about, anything you're unsure about, let me go back through the chat real quick so I missed anything. You probably have a sticker or pin as an identifier on these upgrades. It'll be on the chain code card. Yeah, it'll be on the chain code card. And correct, you cannot toss it over. You cannot toss the recon spawn beacon over buildings or anything like that. You have to drop it at your feet. Think of the tac reinserts from the old Modern Warfare 2. If anyone is old enough to remember those days. Dun, dun, dun. Man, this went so much longer than I wanted it to. Now I'm just vamping, giving people time to ask questions. Hope everyone's had a good evening. Hope everyone's doing good. We've had a pretty good turnout for this. So wow, nice to see you all here. I don't want to just sit here awkwardly in silence if people have a chance to ask questions, but yeah. If you need help remembering, things we covered today would have been the stealth eliminations, the new recon equipment changes to NVGs and thermals, the changes to resilience, oh, where'd that picture go? We lost a photo. Should have been a photo of 3 scout troopers. There it is. Our 2 scout troopers and a mud trooper. So yep, the changes to Imperial Plastoid, the upcoming hero missions, the new Battlefront Mouston missions, and the hero upgrades. That's all the stuff we covered. Thank you, Liana. Jun Solo, please. He's not my father. I'm gonna give it a few minutes, see if anything goes up on chat. And of course, all of these except for the canon events and the hero upgrades have already been announced in the announcements channel. So when might we see another garrison event in Tennessee? Hopefully next March. That was something that I actually had Justin on the event during our Empire episode, and I asked him about that. And so we got to the field owners. They want us back. So hopefully we're shooting for next March. We'll have a Nox Prime 2. Mission field. That does help clear the fire in the field during encounters. Yep. So that's that. I'm going to make the announcement at some point for the new prestige perks. And, I'm sure all our heroes will be very excited to see that they are now a cool prestige class. I know I am I'm actually a little annoyed I became a admin because I want to use some of these perks. I want to get some of that play experience with this. But also, that's life. Battlefront Mouston, check it out. Come to the event. October, let me get back to the promo image. October 11th and 12th, come to that. And then 2 weeks later, Planetary Garrison Regor don't have a promo image for, but that is like I think November 1st. 2 weeks later that following Saturday. Tease Spring Story LARP duration. Oh yeah, the Spring Story LARP. I don't know about you guys, but I often feel like these GCW events just aren't long enough. We because airsofters and larpers are airsofters and larpers, it's like herding cats and it takes forever to get started on Saturday. And so what it comes down to is we don't start till noon on Saturday, and we have to unfortunately have to end the event usually by like 2 p.m. on Sunday. And that's like just so not enough event time for me. So wouldn't it be really cool? Wouldn't it be really nice? Wouldn't it be really neat if perhaps, just maybe, we lived in a world in which DCW events started a day sooner? I don't know about you, but I think I would love that. Just something to think about. Just something to consider when you're planning out your PTO for the year. You might want to put in for an extra day. Who knows? Who knows? Hard to say. But yeah, there's also a Florida event. I don't think it's been officially announced yet, but I had Ronan as a guest speaker shortly, and I asked him, and he did say that Mind Games would be hosting another event at DV8, so the same field as last time. Great field, love that field. I believe he said January or February. Yeah, Ken, you're in the chat. So, that's another one. Listen. I'm super excited for every GCW event, but that event in particular because while it is Florida, it's Florida in like the very beginning of the year when it's not hot, so it's like peak airsoft and LARPing time. And also DV8 is just a really cool field. If you ever want an excuse to do a shore trooper, that field is like Scarif minus the beaches. Just pretend that the like edges of the field are a beach with water and ocean, and brother, you're on Scarif. It's so cool. So yeah, be looking out for that. There have been some changes to the field, but it is in February. All right, cool. So Lithia Prime 2, I don't know what we're officially, our Flames Rebellion 2, I don't know what they're calling it, in February. I'm looking forward to it. You be looking forward to it. Dude, we have like 4 events lined up. Granted, 2 have not been officially announced yet, but we've already got 4 lined up. And then we're going to have Battlefront Mouston. 2 weeks later, we're having Planetary Garrison Regor. February, we're back in Florida for Flames of the Rebellion. Come March, we'll have Nox Prime 2, hopefully. Praying to God. And around that same time of the year, we'll have the next story LARP back in Mouston. So there's just so much, but it's never enough. I'm gonna keep petitioning Chris for those monthly events until he gives them to us. I need monthly GCW. 5-4. 5 events. Yeah, we got 5 events lined up uh in the next like 6 months. Maybe like next, no, more than that. In the next year we can expect 5 to 6 events. That's crazy, and it's still not enough. I need 12 events per year, Chris. I know you're hearing me. I know you're here. All right. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and start wrapping it up. This was supposed to take 30 minutes. I've been talking for an hour. Yeah, new rules. I am going to probably start doing one of these little rule updates episode every time new rules get pushed out. Don't expect new rules to get pushed out often. Probably just post every event. We take feedback, we tweak things, and I'll try and cover that to make it as accessible and digestible as for people to understand. If you have further questions, please, please, please head on over to the Galactic Civil War Discord server where you can find the gameplay rules discussion right underneath the announcement discussion channel, which is right underneath the official announcement channel. It is literally third from the top. Can't miss it. So if you have any more questions, ask them there. Feel free to ping Lieutenant Jen Husky. I don't ever mind getting pinged at any hour of the day. I love talking to people on Discord, so feel free to ping me directly if you need any questions answered. But other than that, we are going to roll into closing this up. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for partaking in all this, and thank you for being you. Me. Thank you for partaking in all this, and thank you for being you.